In the last episode, Gully Foyle, while seeking legal help from Regis Sheffield in order to turn himself in, instead found himself knocked down, drugged, and abducted by Sheffield, who, as it turns out, was an agent for the outer satellites. Sheffield took Foyle and jaunted to Foyle's headquarters in Old St. Pat's. As Sheffield explained, the OS knew about the PyrE, though they didn't know what it was, but they also wanted Foyle himself for a different reason. While in their custody, he had escaped by space jaunting 600,000 miles back to the wreck of the Nomad. Foyle didn't remember this or his capture. This was the first time anyone had successfully space jaunted, and the OS was determined to find out how he had done it by any means necessary. Bunny, Sheffield's assistant, witnessed the abduction. Having searched for and found Sheffield and Foyle, she went straight to intelligence headquarters to inform Yeovil. Upon hearing where they were, Yeovil immediately ran to stop Robin from carrying out their plan. Namely, she was to use her telepathy to ignite any stray particles of PyrE in the hope of drawing Foyle back to wherever he hid the rest of it. Yeovil was too late. 1/10 of a gram of loose PyrE in Fourmyle's lab at Old St. Pat's exploded, killed Sheffield, and demolished the building, bringing the walls and roof down. The debris had fallen to form a precarious dome of sorts that might give way at any time and fall the rest of the way down. This was hanging over Foyle, who, though injured, somehow had survived the brunt of the blast. Yeovil and Dagenham arrived to observe the damage. They saw Foyle lying near the bottom of the crater left by the explosion. Melted copper from the roof was flowing into the crater and would eventually reach Foyle as it filled the hole. Yeovil and Dagenham didn't dare try to approach Foyle from above. Trying another tack, they donned protective suits and worked their way through the basement. They were close enough to see Foyle, whose clothes were now ablaze. Yeovil instantly recognized Foyle as the burning man he had seen on the Spanish stairs. They were stopped in their efforts by the tangle of debris, which they could not penetrate. They noticed that although they couldn't get to him, he could get out from his side. But despite their efforts, they were unable to communicate to Foyle just what he needed to do to escape. They realized that he wouldn't or couldn't hear them, though they didn't know why. Although he was not unconscious, Foyle had been severely stunned by the explosion and was suffering synesthesia. His senses were crossed, and he was experiencing motion as sound and sound as sight. He was unable to perceive what they were saying to him. Just as his would-be rescuers were going to try to bring Robin to try to communicate with him telepathically, they noticed that Foyle was winking in and out, appearing and disappearing. He was trying to jaunt away. In his desperation, his instincts took over and overpowered his human limitations. He was again space jaunting as had happened before. The speed of his travel was the speed of thought, faster than the speed of light. He was jaunting not only through space, but through time. But each time he jaunted, he kept returning to the strongest attractor in space-time, which was his current now moment in the wreck of Old St. Pat's. He was briefly revisiting key moments of his journey, not only in memory, but with his physical presence. He was the burning man on the Australian beach, the Spanish stairs, Orwell's office, the moon, and the Scopsy colony. Finally, he was the one who, with crossed senses, was able to interpret for his other self Lindsay Joyce's silent pleas and her accusation of Olivia Prestane as the one who gave the orders aboard Forga. At the end of the episode, we left Foyle mid-jaunt, his next destination an unknown. Will Foyle be able to finally jaunt away from his trap under the wreckage, or will the debris cave in before he can? Will the molten metal pooling below get to him first? Will Yeovil and Dagenham be able to extract him from his predicament? Find out in episode 17 of The Stars, My Destination by Alfred Bester. He fell back into the pit under Old St. Pat's, and suddenly his confusion and despair told him he was dead. This was the finish of Gully Foyle. This was eternity, and hell was real. What he had seen was the past passing before his crumbling senses in the final moment of death. What he was enduring, he must endure through all time. He was dead. He knew he was dead. He refused to submit to eternity. He beat again into the unknown. The burning man jaunted. He was in a scintillating mist, a snowflake cluster of stars, a shower of liquid diamonds. There was the touch of butterfly wings on his skin. There was the taste of a strand of cool pearls in his mouth. His crossed kaleidoscopic senses could not tell him where he was, but he knew he wanted to remain in this nowhere forever.
Hello, Gully.
Who's that?
This is Robin.
Robin?
Robin Wensbury, that was.
That was.
Robin Yeovil, that is.
I don't understand. Am I dead?
No, Gully.
Where am I?
A long, long way from Old St. Pat's.
But where?
I can't take the time to explain, Gully. You've only got a few moments here.
Why?
Because you haven't learned how to jaunt through space-time yet. You've got to go back and learn.
But I do know. I must know. Sheffield said I space jaunted to Nomad 600,000 miles.
That was an accident then, Gully, and you'll do it again after you teach yourself. But you're not doing it now. You don't know how to hold on yet, how to turn any now into reality. You'll tumble back into Old St. Pat's in a moment.
Robin, I've just remembered. I have bad news for you.
I know, Gully.
Your mother and sisters are dead.
I've known for a long time, Gully.
How long?
For 30 years.
That's impossible.
No, it isn't. This is a long, long way from Old St. Pat's. I've been waiting to tell you how to save yourself from the fire, Gully. Will you listen?
I'm not dead?
No.
I'll listen.
Your senses are all confused. It'll pass soon, but I won't give the directions in left and right or up and down. I'll tell you what you can understand now.
Why are you helping me after what I've done to you?
Oh, that's all forgiven and forgotten, Gully. Now listen to me. When you get back to Old St. Pat's, turn around until you're facing the loudest shadows. Got that?
Yes.
Go toward the noise until you feel a deep prickling on your skin. Then stop.
Then stop.
Make a half turn into compression and a feeling of falling. Follow that.
Follow that.
You'll pass through a solid sheet of light and come to the taste of quinine. That's really a mass of wire. Push straight through the quinine until you see something that sounds like trip hammers. You'll be safe.
How do you know all this, Robin?
I've been briefed by an expert, Gully.
There was a sensation of laughter.
You'll be falling back into the past any moment now. Peter and Saul are here. They say au revoir and good luck. And Belle Dagenham, too. Good luck, Gully dear.
The past? This is the future?
Yes, Gully.
Am I here? Is Olivia?
And then he was tumbling down, down, down the space-time lines back into the dreadful pit of now. His senses uncrossed in the ivory and gold star chamber of Castle Prestane. Sight became sight, and he saw the high mirrors and stained glass windows, the gold-tooled library with android librarian on library ladder. Sound became sound, and he heard the android secretary tapping the manual bead recorder at the Louis Ken's desk. Taste became taste as he sipped the cognac that the robot bartender handed him. He knew he was at bay, faced with the decision of his life. He ignored his enemies and examined the perpetual beam carved in the robot face of the bartender, the classic Irish grin.
Thank you.
My pleasure, sir.
The robot awaited its next cue.
Nice day.
Always a lovely day somewhere, sir.
The robot beamed.
Awful day.
Always a lovely day somewhere, sir.
Day.
Always a lovely day somewhere, sir.
Foyle turned to the others, motioning to the robot.
That's me. That's all of us. We prattle about free will, but we're nothing but response. Mechanical reaction in prescribed grooves. So, here I am. Here I am, waiting to respond. Press the buttons and I'll jump. My pleasure to serve, sir.
Suddenly, his tone lashed them.
What do you want?
They stirred with uneasy purpose. Foyle was burned, beaten, chastened, and yet he was taking control of all of them.
We'll stipulate the threats. I'm to be hung, drawn, and quartered. Tortured in hell if I don't. What? What do you want?
I want my property.
Prestane smiled coldly.
18 and some odd pounds of PyrE, yes. What do you offer?
I make no offer, sir. I demand what is mine.
Young Yeovil and Dagenham began to speak. Foyle silenced them.
One button at a time, gentlemen. Prestane is trying to make me jump at present.
He turned to Prestane.
Press harder, blood and money, or find another button. Who are you to make demands at this moment?
Prestane tightened his lips.
The law.
What? Threats? Am I to be frightened into anything? Don't be an imbecile. Speak to me the way you did New Year's Eve, Prestane. Without mercy, without forgiveness, without hypocrisy.
Prestane bowed, took a breath, and ceased to smile.
I offer you power. Adoption as my heir. Partnership in Prestane Enterprises. The chieftainship of clan and sept. Together we could own the world.
With PyrE?
Yes.
Your proposal is noted and declined. Will you offer your daughter?
Olivia?
Prestane choked and clenched his fists.
Yes, Olivia. Where is she?
You scum, filth, common thief, you dare to...
Will you offer your daughter for the PyrE?
Yes.
Foyle turned to Dagenham.
Press your button, Death's Head.
If the discussion's to be conducted on this level...
It is. Without mercy, without forgiveness, without hypocrisy. What do you offer?
Glory.
Huh?
We can't offer money or power. We can offer honor. Gully Foyle, the man who saved the inner planets from annihilation. We can offer security. We'll wipe out your criminal record. give you an honored name, guarantee a niche in the Hall of Fame.
No, don't accept. If you want to be a savior, destroy the secret. Don't give PyrE to anyone.
What is PyrE?
Quiet!
It's a thermonuclear explosive that's detonated by thought alone, by psychokinesis.
What thought?
The desire of anyone to detonate it, directed at it. That brings it to critical mass if it's not insulated by inert lead isotope.
I told you to be quiet.
If we all have a chance at him, I want mine.
This is bigger than idealism.
Nothing's bigger than idealism.
Foyle's secret is, I know how relatively unimportant PyrE is just now.
He smiled at Foyle.
Sheffield's law assistant overheard part of your little discussion in Old St. Pat's. We know about the space jaunting.
There was a sudden hush.
Space jaunting? Impossible. You don't mean it.
I do mean it. Foyle's demonstrated that space jaunting is not impossible. He jaunted 600,000 miles from an OS raider to the wreck of the Nomad. As I said, this is far bigger than PyrE. I should like to discuss the matter first.
Everyone's been telling what they want. What do you want, Gully Foyle?
Thank you. I want to be punished.
What?
I want to be purged.
The stigmata began to appear on his bandaged face.
I want to pay for what I've done and settle the account. I want to get rid of this damnable cross I'm carrying, this ache that's cracking my spine. I want to go back to Gouffre Martel. I want a Lobo, if I deserve it. And I know I do.
You want escape. There is no escape.
I want release.
Out of the question. There's too much of value locked up in your head to be lost by lobotomy.
We're beyond easy childish things like crime and punishment.
No, there must always be sin and forgiveness. We're never beyond that.
Profit and loss, sin and forgiveness, idealism and realism.
Foyle smiled.
You're all so sure, so simple, so single-minded. I'm the only one in doubt. Let's see how sure you really are. You'll give up Olivia Prestane? To me, yes? Will you give her up to the law? She's a killer.
Prestane tried to rise and then fell back in his chair.
There must be forgiveness, Robin. Will you forgive Olivia Prestane? She murdered your mother and sisters.
Robin turned ashen. Young Yeovil tried to protest.
The outer satellites don't have PyrE, Yeovil. Sheffield revealed that. Would you use it on them anyway? Will you turn my name into common anathema, like lynch and boycott?
Foyle turned to Gisbella.
Will your idealism take you back to Gouffre Martel to serve out your sentence? And you, Dagenham, will you give her up? Let her go?
He listened to the outcries and watched the confusion for a moment, bitter and constrained.
Life is so simple. This decision is so simple, isn't it? Am I to respect Prestane's property rights, the welfare of the planets, Bell's ideals, Dagenham's realism, Robin's conscience? Press the button and watch the robot jump. But I'm not a robot. I'm a freak of the universe, a thinking animal. And I'm trying to see my way clear through this morass. Am I to turn PyrE over to the world and let it destroy itself? Am I to teach the world how to space jaunt and let us spread our freak show from galaxy to galaxy through all the universe? What's the answer?
The bartender robot hurled its mixing glass across the room with a resounding crash. An amazed silence followed.
Damn! My radiation's disrupted your dolls again, Prestane.
The robot said, quite distinctly,
The answer is yes.
What?
Foyle was taken aback.
The answer to your question is yes.
Thank you.
My pleasure, sir. A man is a member of society first, and an individual second. You must go along with society, whether it chooses destruction or not.
Completely haywire. Switch it off, Prestane.
Wait,
Foyle looked at the beaming grin engraved in the steel robot face.
but society can be so stupid, so confused. You've witnessed this conference.
Yes, sir. But you must teach, not dictate. You must teach society.
The space jaunt? Why? Why reach out to the stars and galaxies? What for?
Because you're alive, sir. You might as well ask, why is life? Don't ask about it, live it.
Quite mad.
But fascinating.
There's got to be more to life than just living.
Then find it for yourself, sir. Don't ask the world to stop moving because you have doubts.
Why can't we all move forward together?
Because you're all different. You're not lemmings. Some must lead and hope that the rest will follow.
Who leads?
The men who must. Driven men, compelled men.
Freak men.
You're all freaks, sir. But you always have been freaks. Life is a freak. That's its hope and glory.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, sir.
You've saved the day.
Always a lovely day somewhere, sir.
The robot beamed. Then it fizzed, jangled, and collapsed. Foyle turned on the others.
That thing's right, and you're wrong. Who are we, any of us, to make a decision for the world? Let the world make its own decisions. Who are we to keep secrets from the world? Let the world know and decide for itself. Come to Old St. Pat's.
He jaunted. They followed. The city block was still cordoned, and by now an enormous crowd had gathered. So many of the rash and curious were jaunting into the smoking ruins that the police had set up a protective induction field to keep them out. Even so, urchins, curio seekers, and irresponsibles attempted to jaunt into the wreckage, only to be burned by the induction field and depart squawking. At a signal from Yang Yeovil, the field was turned off. Foyle went through the hot rubble to the east wall of the cathedral, which stood to a height of 15 feet. He felt the smoking stones, pressed and levered. There came a grinding grumble, and a 3 by 5 foot section jarred open and then stuck. Foyle gripped it and pulled. The section trembled. Then the roasted hinges collapsed, and the stone panel crumbled. 2 centuries before, when organized religion had been abolished and Orthodox worshippers of all faith had been driven underground. Some devout souls had constructed this secret niche in Old St. Pat's and turned it into an altar. The gold of the crucifix still shone with the brilliance of eternal faith. At the foot of the cross rested a small black box of inert lead isotope.
Is this a sign? Is this the answer I want?
He snatched the heavy safe before any could seize it. He jaunted 100 yards to the remnants of the cathedral steps facing Fifth Avenue. There, he opened the safe in full view of the gaping crowds. A shout of consternation went up from the intelligence crews, who knew the truth of its contents.
Foyle!
For God's sake, Foyle!
Foyle withdrew a slug of PyrE, the color of iodine crystals, the size of a cigarette. 1 pound of transplutonian isotopes in solid solution. He roared to the mob.
PyrE! Take it! Keep it! It's your future! PyrE!
He hurled the slug into the crowd and roared over his shoulder.
San Fran, Russian Hill Stage.
He jaunted St. Louis, Denver to San Francisco, arriving at the Russian Hill Stage where it was 4 in the afternoon and the streets were bustling with late shopper jaunters.
PyrE!
His devil face glowed blood red. He was an appalling sight.
PyrE! It's danger! It's death! It's yours! Make them tell you what it is.
He called to his pursuit as it arrived.
No!
He jaunted. It was lunch hour in Nome, and the lumberjacks jaunting down from the sawmills for their beef steak and beer were startled by the tiger-faced man who hurled a 1 pound slug of iodine-colored alloy in their midst and shouted in the gutter tongue.
PyrE! You hear me, man? You listen to me, you! PyrE's filthy death for us, all us. Grab no guesses, you. Make 'em tell you about PyrE is all.
To Dagenham, Yeovil, and others jaunting in after him, as always, seconds too late, he shouted,
Tokyo, Imperial Stage.
He disappeared a split second before their shots reached him. It was 9 o'clock of a crisp, windy morning in Tokyo, and the morning rush hour crowd milling around the Imperial Stage alongside the cart ponds was paralyzed by a tiger-faced samurai who appeared and hurled a slug of curious metal and unforgettable warnings and admonitions at them. Foyle continued to Bangkok, where it was pouring rain, and Delhi, where a monsoon raged, always pursued in his mad dog course. In Baghdad, it was 3 in the morning, and the nightclub crowd and pub crawlers who stayed a perpetual half hour ahead of closing time around the world cheered him alcoholically. In Paris, and again in London, it was midnight, and the mobs on the Champs-Élysées and in Piccadilly Circus were galvanized by Foyle's appearance and passionate exhortation. Having led his pursuers 3/4 of the way around the world in 50 minutes, Foyle permitted them to overtake him in London. He permitted them to knock him down, take the ILI safe from his arms, count the remaining slugs of PyrE, and slam the safe shut.
There's enough left for a war. Plenty left for destruction. Annihilation, if you dare.
He was laughing and sobbing in hysterical triumph.
Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for survival.
Do you realize what you've done, you damned killer?
I know what I've done.
9 pounds of PyrE scattered around the world. One thought and we'll... How can we get it back without telling them the truth? For God's sake, yo, keep that crowd back. Don't let them hear this.
Impossible.
Then let's jaunt.
No, let them hear this. Let them hear everything.
You're insane, man. You've handed a loaded gun to children.
Stop treating them like children and they'll stop behaving like children. Who the hell are you to play monitor?
What are you talking about?
Stop treating them like children. Explain the loaded gun to them. Bring it all out in the open. I've ended the last Star Chamber conference in the world. I've blown the last secret wide open. No more secrets from now on. No more telling the children what's best for them to know. Let them all grow up. It's about time.
Christ, he's insane.
Am I? I've handed life and death back to the people who do the living and dying. The common man's been whipped and led long enough by driven men like us. Compulsive men. Tiger men who can't help lashing the world before them. We're all tigers, the three of us. But who the hell are we to make decisions for the world just because we're compulsive? Let the world make its own choice between life and death. Why should we be saddled with the responsibility?
We're not saddled. We're driven. We're forced to seize the responsibility that the average man shirks.
Then let him stop shirking it. Let him stop tossing his duty and guilt onto the shoulders of the first freak who comes along grabbing at it. Are we to be scapegoats for the world forever?
Damn you. Don't you realize that you can't trust people? They don't know enough for their own good.
Then let them learn or die. We're all in this together. Let's live together or die together.
Do you want to die in their ignorance? You've got to figure out how we can get those slugs back without blowing everything wide open.
No, I believe in them. I was one of them before I turned tiger. They can all turn uncommon if they're kicked awake like I was.
Foyle shook himself and abruptly jaunted to the bronze head of Eros, 50 feet above the counter of Piccadilly Circus. He perched precariously and bawled.
Listen to me, all you. Listen, man. Gonna sermonize me. Dig this, you.
He was answered with a roar.
You pigs, you. You goof like pigs is all. You got the most in you, and you use the least. You hear me, you? Got 1,000,000 in you, and spend pennies. Got a genius in you, and think crazies. Got a heart in you, and feel empties. All of you, every you.
He was jeered. He continued with the hysterical passion of the possessed.
Take a war to make you spend. Take a jam to make you think. Take a challenge to make you great. Rest of the time you sit around lazy, you. Pigs, you. All right, goddamn you, I challenge you, me. Die or live and be great. Bow yourselves to Christ gone or come and find me, Gully Foyle, and I make you men. I make you great. I give you the stars.
He disappeared. He jaunted up the geodesic lines of space-time to an elsewhere and an elsewhen. He arrived in chaos. He hung in a precarious para-now for a moment, and then tumbled back into chaos. His thoughts flooded in.
It can be done. It must be done.
He jaunted again, a burning spear flung from unknown into unknown. And again he tumbled back into a chaos of para-space and para-time. He was lost in nowhere.
I believe. I have faith.
He jaunted again and failed again.
Faith in what?
He was adrift in limbo.
Faith in faith. It isn't necessary to have something to believe in. It's only necessary to believe that somewhere there's something worthy of belief.
He jaunted for the last time, and the power of his willingness to believe transformed the para-now of his random destination into a real now. Rigel in Orion, burning blue-white, 540 light years from Earth, 10,000 times more luminous than the sun, a cauldron of energy circled by 37 massive planets. Foyle hung, freezing and suffocating in space, face to face with the incredible destiny in which he believed, but which was still inconceivable. He hung in space for a blinding moment, as helpless, as amazed, and yet as inevitable as the first gilled creature to come out of the sea and hang gulping on a primeval beach in the dawn history of life on Earth. He space jaunted, turning para now into now, Vega in Lyra, an A0 star 26 light years from Earth, burning bluer than Rigel, planetless, but encircled by swarms of blazing comets whose gaseous tails scintillated across the blue-black firmament. And again, he turned now into now, Canopus, yellow as the sun, gigantic, thunderous in the silent wastes of space, at last invaded by a creature that once was gilled. The creature hung, gulping on the beach of the universe, nearer death than life, nearer the future than the past, 10 leagues beyond the wide world's end. It wondered at the masses of dust, meteors, and motes that girdled Canopus in a broad, flat ring like the rings of Saturn and the breadth of Saturn's orbit. Now, Aldebaran in Taurus, a monstrous red star of a pair of stars whose 16 planets wove high-velocity ellipses around their gyrating parents. He was hurling himself through space-time with growing assurance. Now, Antares, an M1 red giant, paired like Aldebaran, 250 light years from Earth, encircled by 250 planetoids of the size of Mercury, of the climate of Eden. And lastly, now, he was drawn to the womb of his birth. He returned to the Nomad, now welded into the mass of the Sargasso asteroid, home of the lost scientific people who scavenged the spaceways between Mars and Jupiter, home of Joseph, who had tattooed Foyle's tiger face and mated him to the woman Moira. He was back aboard Nomad.
Gully Foyle is my name, and Terra is my nation. Deep space is my dwelling place. The stars, my destination.
The woman, Moira, found him in his tool locker aboard Nomad, curled in a tight fetal ball, his face hollow, his eyes burning with divine revelation. Although the asteroid had long since been repaired and made airtight, Foyle still went through the motions of the perilous existence that had given birth to him years before. But now he slept and meditated, digesting and encompassing the magnificence he had learned. He awoke from reverie to trance and drifted out of the locker, passing Moira with blind eyes, brushing past the woman who stepped aside in awe and sank to her knees. He wandered through the empty passages and returned to the womb of the locker. He curled up again and was lost. She touched him once. He made no move. She spoke the name that had been emblazoned on his face. He made no answer. She turned and fled to the interior of the asteroid, to the Holy of Holies in which Joseph reigned.
My husband has returned to us.
Your husband?
The God-man who almost destroyed us.
Joseph's face darkened with anger.
Where is he? Show me.
You will not hurt him?
All debts must be paid. Show me.
Joseph followed her to the locker aboard Nomad and gazed intently at Foyle. The anger in his face was replaced by wonder. He touched Foyle and spoke to him. There was still no response.
You cannot punish him. He is dying.
No, he is dreaming. I, a priest, know these dreams. Presently he will awaken and read to us, his people, his thoughts.
And then you will punish him.
He has found it already in himself.
He settled down outside the locker. The woman, Moira, ran up the twisted corridors and returned a few moments later with a silver basin of warm water and a silver tray of food. She bathed Foyle gently and then set the tray before him as an offering. Then she settled down alongside Joseph, alongside the world, prepared to await the awakening. The end.
This is our final performance of The Star is My Destination by Alfred Bester.